Dzień dobry, witamy Państwa na kolejnym dniu naszego seminarium poświęconego egzegezie Szkoły Świętego Wiktora i egzegezie rabinicznej. Trzeci dzień, kolejne przykłady, które Pani Profesor nam tutaj poda. Nous saluons seulement nos amis français qui parlent français, Antonio surtout, et nous laissons la parole à notre professeur. Voilà.
Merci beaucoup. Yankee. Well, so we are going to continue our seminar, and this time we are going to see the common commentaries between the Victorines, Hugh and Andrew, and Rashbam, Rabbi Shmuel ben Meir, who was a disciple of Rashi in the 12th century in northern France. And I don't know, I cannot see. Pass. Okay, yeah. So there are certain pieces of evidence pertaining to Rashbam which are not present in the other commentators, Jewish commentators. So Rashbam is especially shows, especially in his writings, that he talked with the Victorines. One of these pieces of evidence is the phrase "vehodu li." In Hebrew, they admitted to me. No? Oda, from the Hebrew root yada. So Rashbam says in several occasions, Amarti la minim vehodu li. No? I told the heretics, minim, and they agreed to it. There is another expression, tshuva la minim vehodu li. This is the answer to heretics, and they accepted it. So in both cases, Rashbam is responding to another interpretation, a different interpretation. For example, lo tarbia kelaim, two different species. You shouldn't mix two different species of clothes. Similarly, one should explain the restriction against wearing wool and linen together. It is out loud, because it is an illicit combination of two categories, as the former is from an animal and the latter is from the category of things that grow in the ground. To the heretics, they meant Christians here, I said that the text out loud clothing of two different colors. For wool is generally color, but linen is not. Vehodu li. They accepted this explanation. So this vehodu li implies a contact. No? They cannot admit if there is no two different opinions. So also Rashbam employs this same phrase to refer to Rashi's acceptance of his own argument in a discussion that he held with him. Rabbi Salomon, my mother's father, set out to explain the plain meaning of scripture. And he admitted to me that if only he had the time, he would have written new commentaries based on the insights into the plain meaning of a scripture that are newly thought of day by day. So this is the first piece of evidence that Rashbam probably talked with Hugh and Andrew. The second piece of evidence is that Rashbam was in Paris. No? He himself says in his writings that he was in Paris. Paris was one of the most important centers in that time of Jewish learning. And in his commentary on Numbers 11:35, he says, "Umesupach lerabotai venishalti alaf beparis, ufirashti baderasham." My teachers were not sure how to explain this text. I was asked about it in Paris, and I explained it in a sermon. We know that the Jews lived in the Latin Quarter near Notre Dame, where Saint Victor, the monastery of Saint Victor, was as well. So it's possible that this meeting between the Rashbam and the Victorines took place in Paris. Rashbam studied in Troyes under Rushing, and he could have met Hugh between in the 20s, 30s, before Hugh died in 1141. Because, well, and also with Andrew, Rashbam could have met before Rashbam himself died, no? In 1159, because Andrew left for England in 1147-49, and then he came back to Saint Victor for a short stay of 3 years between 1159 and 1163. So either before 47 or between 59 and 63, Andrew may have met Rashbam. Norman Gold suggests that Rashbam was in Rouen, and perhaps there were Victorines there also in Rouen. So there are 14 common interpretations between Rashbam and Hugh and Andrew. Either Hugh or Andrew or both. And we are going to analyze 2 of them. One is the common interpretation of Exodus 3, verse 22. And let's read the Masoretic text in the translation. Well, first, Hebrew, "Venatati etchen ha'am hazeh beinei Mitzrayim, ושאלה אישה משכנתה ומגרת ביתה כלי כסף וכלי זהב, ושמלות ושמתם על בניכם ועל בנותיכם וניצלתם את מצרים." So this verse is repeated also in Exodus 11. And I'll dispose the Egyptians, God is speaking to Moses, no? I'll dispose the Egyptians favorably towards these people. Each woman shall borrow from her neighbor and the lodger in her house objects of silver and gold and clothing, and you shall put these on your sons and daughters, thus stripping the Egyptians. So the Israelites are leaving Egypt. So God is asking through Moses, the Israelites should ask the Egyptians some objects, some vessels for the journey, no? For the journey until they reach the promised land, for the journey in the desert. And they stripped the Egyptians. So this passage was commented and received 2 interpretations by both Jews and Christians. The first interpretation is that the Israelites borrowed vessels and clothes from the Egyptians and did not give them back. So they stripped the Egyptians. And according to the second view, however, the Israelites requested from the Egyptians the same material goods as a gift, which the latter granted them. Both interpretations are derived from the context of the three biblical texts. The first interpretation is supported by the fact that the verb lenatzel in piel means to spoil, to strip, or to plunder, to steal. And that's not fit with the idea that the Egyptians gave them freely these vessels. However, the second interpretation is favored by the note in the three passages that the children of Israel receive favor from God before the eyes of the Egyptians. So Hugh and Andrew, both, no? On the one hand, Hugh and Andrew, and on the other hand, Rashbam, speak of these two interpretations. One, it's a theft, they plunder. The other, no, they received as a gift. So Hugh and Andrew say, the Hebrews hand down that the children of Israel found such grace from God before the Egyptians that they requested vessels as a gift, and they, the Egyptians, gave them to them. Our interpreters, however, the Latin commentators, state with more probability that they received them on loan. So you see the two interpretations. Nostri expositores, nostri, the Latin interpretations, verisimilius, more probably, dicunt mutuo, in on loan, accepisse. But Hebrei tradunt ut dono postularent, as a gift, ut dono, as a gift. And the same Andrew, but Andrew says a little bit differently. Sed credibilius, it is more credible, that mutuo accepta asportase. It's more credible that they received on loan, not as a gift. So you see that Andrew and Hugh contemplate both interpretations. And let's go to Rashbam. Rashbam is more categorical. Veshala, each woman shall request from her neighbor. Shall here means to request as an outright and absolute gift. So he emphasized, no, it's a gift, it's a complete gift. That is why it says the text, I shall dispose the Egyptians favorably to the people. Similarly, and he quotes as the Psalm 2, shall me many, and I will give you, I shall make the nations your domain. This is a messianic psalm, and God is speaking to the Messiah. Ask from me, and I will make you the nations your domain. So Rashbam says, this interpretation is the true plain meaning of the verse and is an appropriate rebuttal for the heretics. She'al mimeni ve'etna goim nachalatcha. This is Psalm 2. So in Psalm 2, it has the meaning of, ask me and I will give you, as a gift. So Rashbam interprets the verb shall, as to request as a gift. And he gives two reasons for this interpretation. Because it's written in the previous verse that God favored the people before the eyes of the Egyptians. that God moved the Egyptians to favor the Israelites. And there are other examples in the Bible that where sha'al means to give as a gift. So Rashbam uses two adjectives, no? Gemura means outright, complete, and chaluta means absolute, an absolute gift. So if he's emphasizing so much, it's because probably he's aware of another interpretation. There are other Jewish commentators who interpret sha'al as to borrow. So we know that sha'al is have both interpretations: to ask for, to borrow, and to give or lend, and to make over to. There are other Jewish commentators like Rabbeinu Hananel, early, and Seadia Gaon, 9th century in Babylon, who interpret the verb vesha'ala as to request as a gift. But they are not so similar to Rashbam, to Andrew and Hugh. So Seadia Gaon says, vesha'ala, each woman shall request, rather, she shall receive as a gift. And Rabbeinu Hananel says, each woman shall request from her neighbor, God forbid that the Holy One, blessed be he, should allow deception of his creatures to the extent that these would borrow and not give them back. So the phrase vesha'ala means that, that she shall give her as a gift. So also Rabbeinu Hananel is talking about giving as a gift. But none of the other Jewish commentators express so all the elements that the Victorines have, no? Because the Victorines, both the Victorines and Rashbam, speak not only of the meaning of the verb sha'al as to give as a gift, but also they refer to the previous verse, no? That God will give favor to Israel before the Egyptians, which was the reason for Egypt's giving gifts to the Israelites. And besides, both the Victorines and Rashbam refer to another verse, Exodus 11. They do not limit themselves to Exodus 3, but they go to Exodus 11. They both repeat another verse, no? And they shall request objects of silver and gold. And Rashbam again, as an outright gift. The root sha'al means here to request as an outright gift. And again, the reference to Psalm 2:8. And Rashbam even goes to Exodus 12:36. And he repeats again, the Lord has disposed the Egyptians favorably towards the people, so that they gave them items as outright gifts. So I think it's very clear, no? Because on the one hand, the Victorines, Hugh and Andrew, on the other hand, Rashbam, each of them refer to two possible interpretations, and they emphasize, no, they gave them as a gift, not on loan. And this is a rebuttal for heretics. So they are aware of another people who interpret differently. And they refer to this verse, no, the previous verse. They don't know if they here, no, they yes. Hay una pregunta, okay. Yes.
What kind of heretics do you think they might represent? I mean, the view, heretical view, somebody might represent and say things like those that he was trying to dismiss in terms of keep the most pure and the purest and the most orthodox perspective. Who could be those heretics? Because you referred to a heretical movement or opinions that they would insist on that not being a gift but plunder. Who do you think they were, those heretics?
Well, I think they refer to Christians, but there are other Jews as well who, for example, I think Behor Shor, no? But I think he was referring to Christians who were the ones who.
Even though we have examples of Christians who defend that very, let's say, politically correct option of that being a gift, right?
Yes, but I think that these Christians, Hugh and Andrew, defend this gift, this meaning of matana, no, of shal, to give as a gift, because of the Jewish view. Because before, they said our nostri expositores. Huh? So nostri expositores were the Latin ones. Nostri expositores verisimilius, no? It's more probable that where nostri expositores said is is more logical. They took it as a loan. And also credibilius, no? Andrew says credibilius est mutuo accepta asportasse. Sed excusantur, no? They are excused since they did this by the Lord's command. I think this was the Latin opinion, no? The Christian opinion. And they, Hugh and Andrew are reporting that the Jews had another opinion. So I think after listening to the Jewish opinion, they report the Jewish opinion and they admit that this may be.
It is just a detail that they happened to dedicate some time to discuss, or you think it was a crucial matter for debate between those circles, Jewish and Christian circles? Do you think it was just a simple, a minor issue that they happened to address at the same time, showing similar views of it?
Yes.
Or it was like a very highly debated thing that might shed some light on either, the Israelites leaving Egypt being, kind of in a mood for plundering.
Yes.
You think that was the issue?
I think we find, a number of Christian commentators that write that the Jews left plundering. So the Jews were concerned that the Christians accused them of leaving Egypt. In the fathers, no, we find that this was an accusation, no. So it was not a minor issue. I think. It was
it is present in Augustine exegesis
yes.
as justification what we should do with some external culture, the Christian as an example,
Yes.
to demonstrate the Jews did this during the Exodus, so we should do something similar with our culture, so pagan culture. We use what is good for our purpose.
Yes.
I think that this is the statement of Augustine.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Approval.
Yes.
So they did it. They have the right
Or
to
some
do the
kind
same.
of Christian citizens.
yeah. It
Condemnation.
No,
No, directly what he said.
no. As an example,
yeah.
for a part or group.
Yeah. So I think there was a tradition in Christianity that the Jews plundered. And it was known. This interpretation was known to the Jews. So they tried to defend themselves. No? They say, no, it's a loan. No, so so these Hugh and Andrew are aware, no, that the Jews are saying, no, it's a loan. So okay, perhaps. No? So, but then it's incredible because Hugh in later in the comment on, let's see, on Exodus 11 or 12, Hugh says, and the Lord will give favor. So again, this verse appears later. Here, it is intimated that it is true that the Israelites ask for them not on a loan, but as a gift. So even though Hugh before in Exodus 3 says, well, it's more probable that it's what nostri expositores, what our commentators said, that it was a loan. But here he says another thing, he rectifies. He say, okay, if the Lord gave favor to the Israelites, perhaps it's true what the Jews said, that it was a gift. So Hugh is giving reason to the Jews, no? In this second passage. So I think the dialogue is there. No? Okay, so let's go to the next comment, which is which shows that both the Victorines and Rashbam employed a linguistic principle, or which is the syntactical analysis. No? They are analyzing the syntax of the text. It's Exodus 3:12, no? When Moses is commanded to go to the Israelites to tell them to leave Egypt and go to worship on the mountain, no? to God. So Moses asked, why? I mean, who am I? Who am I that I should go to the Israelites? What shall I tell them? No, will they obey me? No. So the Masoretic text says, "Vayomer ki eheye imcha, v'zeh lecha ha'ot ki anochi shelachticha, ve'otziacha et ha'am mimitzrayim tavdum et ha'elohim al har hazeh." in the Vulgate, qui dixite, God told Moses, no, ero tecum, I will be with you, no, et hoc habebis signum, and you will have as a sign, quod miserim te, that I am sending you, cum eduxeris populum di Egypto immolabis Deo super montem istum, no, that when you will take out the people of Egypt from Egypt, you will sacrifice to God upon this mountain. No? So there are two interpretations of this passage. No? In Hugh and Andrew. No? So we'll read it in English. No? Hugh is on the left, on your left. Hugh. And you shall have for a sign. And then the other, Hugh is shorting, is abbreviating the two sentences. No? And you shall have for a sign, and then when you shall have brought out. Because if you see, Andrew develops the sentences. No? And this you shall have for a sign. Certain commentators expound as follows. So Andrew is referring to Hugh. Certain commentators is Hugh. No? Aliqui or quidam. No? When Andrew says quidam, he's referring to Hugh. Because they wouldn't quote, they wouldn't refer a person alive in the Middle Ages. No? So they would call them quidam. They wouldn't say Hugh. No? Either Jews or Christians, if they are alive, they would say quidam, certain. Several centuries had to pass, no, to be able to refer to someone by name as Beda. No? They can't refer to Beda because it's 8th century, no? But not to Abelard, no? 12th century. And this you shall have for a sign. Certain commentators expound as follows. This you shall have for a sign that I have sent you. Namely, that when you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall sacrifice to God upon this mountain. So you see that the Hugh is shortening the two sentences. No? So what does it mean? No? Which is the sign? What's the sign? What's the proof? No? So Hugh is asking, no? How could something that was going to happen in the distant future be a sign of something else that Moses was just about to do? No? And also Andrew, no? How could something that was going to happen in the future, how could the fact that the people, that Moses will bring the people out of Egypt will be the sign? No, I think a future fact, no, cannot be a proof, no, because what is Moses asking? Oh, okay, how can I let them believe so that they go out? They will come after me. I need to give them a proof. So then Hugh and Andrew say, accordingly, we say, you shall have for a sign this, that I have sent you. Hugh says, may the fact that I am sending you be a sign for you that you shall bring the children of Israel out of Egypt. Still, there is no proof, no? Because here there is a different syntax. I don't know if you you follow. In the first example, the sign is a future event. The proof is that you will do something, you will bring the people out. In the second example, the sign is you have to believe me, I am sending you. This is the sign. So you see that there is a different syntax, no? In the first instance, you shall have for a sign the following, and then the second sentence that you shall bring. In the second instance, the sign is, the syntax is, you shall have for a sign that I have sent you. But this is not a sign, no? either. No? So what is the sign? No? We see the syntax, no? You shall have for a sign this, no? That when you shall have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall sacrifice to God upon this mountain. No? The complex sentence in the second half of the verse is the direct object of the verb you shall have. In the second instance, you shall have as a sign this, the fact that I am sending you. And then the other sentence, when you shall have brought out, is another independent sentence. It has nothing to do. No? The future fact has nothing to do. No? But what is the proof? No? What is the proof? So the proof, I think, is the bush, no? The burning bush. That's the proof, no? That God is giving Moses. This is the sign. No? So when the text is saying hawk, it's at the iktik. No? This is the sign. It's the bush. God is pointing to the bush. The fact that the bush keeps blazing without being consumed, and that God is speaking out of it. So if we go to Andrew, that's what Andrew is saying. Hugh is not saying this, but Andrew is saying, no? And this you shall have for a sign that I have sent you. In the Hebrew, this verse ends here. Hugh is not referring to the Hebrew, but Andrew is referring to the Hebrew. And this is the meaning. This, namely, what you have seen concerning the lamp, that it kept burning without being consumed, and that I've spoken to you from the midst of the bush, you shall have for a sign that I have sent you in order to bring my people out of Egypt. When you shall have brought out is the beginning of another verse. The angel, no, Rashbam, Andrew is speaking of an angel coming from being in the bush. No? There is an angel. Promises him that when he'll have brought the people out of Egypt, he shall sacrifice to God upon Mount Sinai. So the promise is different from the sign. No? The promise that they shall sacrifice, the people of Israel shall sacrifice there, is a different thing from the sign. The sign, the proof, is the bush. So Rashbam, what is Rashbam? I don't know where Rashbam here. Both Rashbam and Rashi say that there are two questions by Moses and two questions by two answers by God. No? And the Holy One answered Moses' two questions also in order and said, who am I that I go to Egypt? So God answers Moses, for I will be with you, and I'll dispose the king favorably towards you. You will go to Pharaoh and not be afraid. And the second question, who am I to go to the Israelites and tell them to go out? As for that which you said, who am I that I should free the Israelites? Through what claim that I say to Pharaoh, will he listen to me? When you free the people from Egypt, I command you now that you should worship God at this mountain. So the same thing is said by Rashi. But Rashi, let's read Rashi. And he said, because I will be with you. He answered his first question first and his last question last. The ze and this, the sight which you have witnessed in the bush, lecha aot, ki anochi shelachticha, shall be a sign unto you because I have sent you. And I am competent to save. Just as you have seen the bush carrying out the mission I laid upon it, and it was not consumed, so you too will go to the mission I entrust to you, and you shall suffer no harm. And then there is the second question of freeing the Israelites. But there is a difference between Rashi and Rashbam, because Rashi doesn't speak about an angel, and both Rashbam and Andrew speak of an angel, that there is an angel in the bush. And they both, Rashbam and also Hugh and Andrew, criticized the earlier interpretation. How could something that was going to happen in the distant future be a sign? And Rashbam says, he who wishes to understand the true plain meaning of these verses should seek wisdom in this, my commentary, for those who preceded me did not understand them at all. So I think Rashbam was the source of this second interpretation in both Hugh and Andrew. But Hugh, I think, was copied by, he didn't write this comment by himself, but his pupils, his students, took reportaciones, copied this comment from Hugh. And I think Andrew copied this more complete. Hugh was dictating it because there is no sense in Hugh's second interpretation. And this is the sign that I am sending you. I think something is missing there. So I think Andrew gives the complete answer, the complete second interpretation by Hugh. And then let's pass to the last common interpretation, this time between Bechor Shor and Andrew. It's the common interpretation on Exodus 4:10. No? It's also about Moses and God. And Andrew is saying, Hebreus exponit, the Hebrew explains. So Andrew says, no, well, the Vulgate says, Ait Moises, obsecro domine, non sum eloquens ab eri et nudius tertius, et exquolocutus es adservum tum impeditioris et ardioris linguae sum. Vayomer Moshe el Adonai, bi Adonai, lo ish devarim anochi, גם מתמול, גם משלשון, גם מאז דברך אל עבדך, כי כבד פה וכבד לשון אנוכי. Moses was a little bit, he had difficulty in speaking. No? So I am not eloquent. No? So Andrew says, what does it mean from yesterday and the day before? What does Moses is saying? No? I am not eloquent from yesterday and the day before. And since you have spoken to your servant. Okay, Moses is not all eloquent. Why does she have to, what does he need to say from yesterday and the day before? No? I have more impediment and slowness of tongue. The Jew explains it in the following way. I am not eloquent, etc. Neither was I eloquent before you spoke to me, nor even afterwards. Since if I were indeed lacking eloquence before, I should have become more eloquent as a result of your communicating your discourse to me, because I am a man of more hampered and slower tongue, employing the comparative instead of the positive is a common practice in the holy writings. No? And what Bechor Shor says, no? גם מתמול, גם משלשום, כלומר, מעולם מום זה, ואינו מום עובר, כי מום קבוע, כי מאז דבריך לא נתרפאתי, ולא אוכל לדבר, כי כבד פה וכבד לשון אנוכי. No? From yesterday and the day before, that is to say, I have always had this blemish, and it is not a passing handicap, but a permanent one. I have not been cured since you spoke to me, and I shall not be able to speak because you spoke to me. No? So, and then when we look to other Jewish exegetes, they interpret differently. Rashi or even Ezra. Well, let's look at, Rashi says, interprets the God spoke with Moses during 7 days. Mishilshon, yesterday and the day before means 7 days. No? So that's the interpretation of Rashi. And Ibn Ezra understands those words as meaning 3 days. Shilshon and the day before, 3 days. So neither of them, and they both are literal exegetes, no? Connects the phrase with the temporality or permanency of Moses' inability to speak fluently. So only Andrew is equal with Bechor Shor. So I think he may have taken from Bechor Shor or from an earlier Jewish disciple of Rashi, of the school of Rashi, and Bechor Shor reflects this interpretation as well. And it's also interesting to see how Andrew refers to Hebreus meus in the singular. So I think he had a particular Jew to whom he went, no? To whom Andrew went, no? Hebreus meus. Sometimes he says Hebreus meus or Hebreus exponit. My Hebrew, no, explains. Hugh doesn't say this. Hugh says Hebrei. Well, just once he says Hebreus in singular in Joel. No? Well, so this is that I think it's clear that Rashbam and Hugh and Andrew spoke, and one of them, Rashbam, refers to Hugh and Hugh and Andrew refer to Rashbam, and also Bechor Shor may have talked with Rashbam. So I think there was contact, no? Intellectual contact among them. So thank you very much.
Back to questions, comments, right, with our online participants. So, back to the chat.
Jeśli są pytania, to zapraszamy. S'il y a des questions, nous vous invitons à les poser. Sinon, nous allons remercier notre professeur et continuer dans un futur indéterminé. Jeśli nie będzie pytań, to podziękujemy pani profesor, ale jeszcze damy szansę tym, którzy chcieliby o coś zapytać. Można w językach, w których się chce pani profesor mówić, tylko mówić. Nie ma pytań na razie.
So, thank you very much for coming. So,
Thank you to you for inviting me.
To all our participants, to all of you for your question, comments regarding these two traditions of exegesis, Jewish and Christian during the Middle Ages. I think we still have this gap of knowledge regarding the medieval attitude toward sacred scripture. So thank you very much for bringing the light to these two words, in fact. And I think, at least I can say on my behalf, that it was really inspiring to see this channel of communication between the School of St. Victor and their Jewish contemporaries. And I hope we should investigate more in sources, and I hope that we will have this opportunity also at our faculty. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.